Today, I would like to address a very common question that I get asked: how to prevent these little chips and flakes from happening when you are polishing your Dorodango. Now, this is a super common question that I get asked all the time. It is a trouble spot, and it's something that I struggled with a lot when I was starting out. And believe me, I understand how frustrating it is when you have a beautiful polished orb and then all of a sudden it ends up like this. So this short video will guide you through how to get a beautiful mirror shine like this. If you would like a more detailed and lengthy explanation where I go through everything in very, very high detail on how to do this, you can find that on my brand new Patreon channel, and I'll put that link in the description for you. But for now, let's get in. So firstly, you want to make sure that your core is perfectly spherical. If it is slightly bumpy or has low areas, what will happen is when you go to shine it up, in the end, it's not going to have a uniform shine. You may end up, if there's raised areas, you may end up having parts that scratch off and you can see the underlying layers, or if there are dips, there'll be areas that simply won't shine up at all. So before we even get into polishing, it's very, very important that your core is as perfect as you can get it. Okay, once you are happy with the roundness of your core, it's time to, what I like to call, muddy up the surface. And this is going to basically prepare the surface for the clay powder to stick really well. So I've washed my hands and I'm going to now wet the surface quite a bit using my shaping jar. So just round and round and round until it's completely muddy and wet. And then I just do a little toss in my hand while it's drying a bit to get it to a nice sticky, tacky surface. So once your surface is tacky, you don't want it wet, but you still want to have some moisture in it. You can begin to very quickly cover your surface in the pure clay powder. So don't worry too much about rubbing anything in at this stage. You just want to dump it all on there and get that surface really evenly and nicely colored. Watch for the different shades of color. Darker areas mean you can add a little bit more clay. You want to get it quite uniform. Okay, so this is looking pretty well covered. Yours should look something like this. And then we are just going to spend quite a bit of time, probably 6, 7, 8 minutes, just rubbing with the palm of our hand and our fingertips. So you don't want to press too hard, you just want a gentle pressure. Okay, so keep doing this until the surface becomes tacky. Once you reach that stage, you can add another layer of clay powder. After around 7, 8 minutes of polishing, you should have something like this. Slightly textured, a little bit of a sheen, but generally quite an even surface. If you're adding color to your Dorodango for that little bit of extra loveliness, then this is where you would add that to your clay. So I don't have a specific measurement, I just put a little bit on, but the thing to note is you want to have more clay than pigment. And then the more layers that you add, the deeper and more vibrant the hue will become. So I'm just going to separate off this mica that hasn't been mixed in with the clay, and we're going to use that in a little while. So grab your ball and start applying the clay mica mix and rub it in just exactly the same as we did in the previous step. Feel free to keep adding clay powder and the mica mix onto the surface as you go along. Just make sure it's all rubbed in evenly and it's tacky before you add more clay. You will repeat this step around 3 to 4 times depending on the intensity of color that you're looking for. after doing all the clay powder, this is what we have. So it's a very evenly covered textured surface. Ensure that it's all rubbed in really well, and then we will start to polish our surface. So if you have purchased my kit, you'll have this neat little shot glass included. If not, find something similar. But what we do now is just gently, not applying any pressure at all, rotate the mouth of the glass over the surface of your Dorodango. This is a very long, slow and careful process, and it's imperative that you stay focused and watch the changes in the surface of your Dorodango to ensure that you don't press too hard accidentally or get a little bit wonky, because that will lift the surface and cause imperfections. So we do this generally for probably 10 to 15 minutes, just depending on what our surface is looking like. Alright, it's been 10 or 15 minutes. And this is what we have. So there's some shiny areas and there's still some textured areas. So from here, we are going to add a tiny little bit of water to our shot glass by just dipping it in and then quickly swiping it in one area and continuing to rotate until that area has become shiny again. And then we'll do the same thing on another area. So you should be able to see areas now that are incredibly smooth mixed in. So they're not shiny yet, but as we keep polishing, that shine is going to come out. But what we're focusing on right now is getting that whole surface smooth. So I've been polishing now for about half an hour using the water and the glass. We have a very nice smooth surface now. You may hear a little squeak. That's just telling us that the surface is very, very smooth and starting to be very wonderful. So as you can see, it's a lot more uniform than it was when we began polishing. The water has really blended it out. Still a couple of little imperfections, but that is okay. It's not going to distract from the overall results. We'll leave it sit until tomorrow. Okay, next day. Still looking good, hasn't changed much. Sometimes they can change. So what we'll do is make sure our glass is very clean, which this one is not. So I'll give it a quick clean. You don't want to have any dry clay or anything on there that's going to mark the surface, and you want to make sure that it's very, very dry as well. So we're going to do a dry polish. Now that our surface is hardened, it's going to bring out a little bit more clarity in the shine. So very gently, just like we were before, with no pressure, just the weight of the glass, and you should be able to see more clarity coming out. I don't do this for very long, probably only 6 or so minutes. Just being very careful not to apply too much pressure at this stage. Dry polish, this is what we have. It's looking very nice. There's still a couple of imperfections, but that is okay. Just a comparison, this is what we're going for. You can see it's a much more clear shine, whereas this one's still a little bit hazy. So we're going to keep going until we can get that nice clear shine out. So after our cloth polish, this is what we look like. We have a little bit more detail in the reflections. You're starting to see some color, and the clarity is becoming much better. So we're going to leave it to rest again overnight, and I'll come back to it tomorrow and we'll give it a quick oil polish. Okay, it's the next day and our Dorodango is drying very nicely. We're not getting any haze, there's no cracks appearing, the surface is in really, really good condition. So we are still aiming for that really bright, hard shine. So what we're going to do is with a clean glass, we're going to give it a dry polish. Firstly, just to warm up the surface, and then we will move on to an oil polish, which will really bring out the shine that we're after. Okay, so it's been 2 or 3 days, and I've just given this another dry glass polish, just really gently. It doesn't quite have that really clear shine yet, so I'm going to give it a really gentle oil polish and see if I can bring out a little bit more shine. So we'll do that now. I just got my glass. Just a little bit of oil around there, on the edge there. Now this is going to make it go intensely shiny, obviously, because it's oily. Most of this will get wiped off in the end. It's just to help lubricate the glass. Okay, so once the oil is all pretty well spread around and you've been polishing for a little while, you can apply a little bit more pressure than we have been previously, and this, you will see, instantly creates a beautiful, beautiful shine. So you can see already there is so much more clarity and detail in the reflections. So we'll just give it a quick polish to remove any of the excess oil. And that now, that's beautiful. That has a really clear shine. So like you can see my tripod and the windows and everything in that, and me with me. So that's awesome. I'm really, really happy with that. And it's a beautiful color too. This is the red one that I sell in my kits. So it's super cool. I want to try and get this bit here a bit shinier. I don't know. Might just spend a little bit of time. Yeah, the key here is not to press too hard, but you want to apply a little bit of pressure because that really flattens down the clay and aligns the particles really well. Find if you get too carried away, too much pressure, especially if your surface is not very close to perfect, you can get a little bit of a snag and you'll get a flake, which is pretty disappointing. So always just take it slow, go easy, and keep focused on your surface and make sure that you're not getting any tiny little fractures or nicks as you go around. But guys, I'm happy with this. This is really beautiful. This is one of my best ones that I've done. But there's still like a couple of tiny imperfections from when I was polishing that I couldn't quite get out on the first day, but they don't distract from the absolute beautifulness, the beauty of this Dorodango. So I hope that this has helped clear up any questions or any issues that you were running into as you were putting on the finishing layers. Because I know it is a tricky process, especially if you're just starting out. A lot of things can go wrong. So hopefully this detailed demonstration has answered your questions and you'll be able to power on now and make some beautiful shiny balls. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.